know what really makes us mad? Is wasting money on CDs with only one or two good songs.
Yeah. Tell them about punk.
What's up, posers? Welcome to Punk Lotto Pod. I'm your co-host, Justin Hensley.
I'm your other co-host, Dylan Hensley.
And this is the show where we choose 1 year at random and select one punk, hardcore, emo, or punk-adjacent album from that year to discuss. Patreon.com/punklotopod is where you go to get access to all of our weekly bonus audio. And last week, what did we do?
We did a chart dive on the top rock tracks of this week in 1986 from Billboard magazine, because we've done chart dives on regular music for this year already.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and what's your overall takeaway from the Billboard chart that we looked at?
it's not great.
Yeah, boring year,
Very boring.
boring stuff.
And a bunch of Van Hagar songs.
Yeah, those were the good ones. I mean, I guess if we're looking at anything remotely like punk adjacent, we could have what? In Excess,
Yeah.
Simple Minds,
Talk.
The Alarm, Elvis Costello, yeah, Bangles, yeah. Not a very punk heavy period. It's funny that these like rock tracks are not nearly as heavy as you'd expect. Though I guess '86 new wave is already kind of like, man, we're past New Romantics even by '86. So it's that weird period of the '80s that's very boring, very dry, which we'll get into a little bit more on '86 when we do our look back at what came out that year. But yeah, lots of bonus content over there. That's our $1 tier. You get access to all the bonus audio. If you sign up at the $5 tier, that is the producer tier, you get your name said on the podcast every single week. So shout out to our producers, Dave Brown, host of the podcast One Band Five Songs. Shout out to Steve Long, host of the podcast Rebel Nerd Radio. Shout out to Jason W., writer of the newsletter Songs About Chocolate and Girls. And shout out to Zach in Oregon. And I don't have a fun little tag to add to that this week, unfortunately. But yeah, if you want your name said every week, sign up at that tier. Also, it gets you exclusive access to a once-a-month bonus audio where we discuss an EP. And for the month of March, we discussed Texas is the Reason's self-titled EP. And then for February, we did Chesterfield King by Jawbreaker. And we currently have a poll open for the producers to vote in to determine our April bonus EP. And you can vote on The Avengers self-titled EP from 1979, Minutemen's Project Mersh from 1985, Archers of Loaf versus the Greatest of All Time from 1994, or Off With Their Heads Hospitals from 2006. So if you want to get in there and vote in that poll before it closes, patreon.com. And at our $10 tier, you get to choose the album we devote an entire episode to, and we've got one of those coming up in short future. So be on the lookout for that. So all of that is at Punk Lotto Pod. A lot of content there for you. So Dylan, you also have something coming up in your neck of the woods.
Yes, we are playing a show. Major Awards is playing at the Redwood Bar in downtown LA with Genghis Kangas, Mirror Figure, and Orange Mayfield. Very much looking forward to that show. $10 at the door. Come hang out, and should be a good time.
And you got a couple more lined up. Have you announced either of the other two yet?
Yeah, not technically. Well,
okay.
We're playing a little later. I'm not pushing the May 4th show yet, but we're playing another downtown LA show on May 4th, and then there's something in the works for June that I am not at liberty to discuss.
I've heard it. It's pretty cool.
Hopefully, it does not fall apart.
Yeah. It's your birthday
change
present.
Is already happening. So,
yeah.
But be on the lookout for some details on that soon, hopefully.
Yeah, very cool. And I believe in a few weeks, Dylan will be going on vacation, and I will be doing a episode with a guest co-host. I have not discussed with who I'm going to record with, but that'll be fun because those are always like different and unique for our show because getting a different take is fun. So yeah, lots going on in the Punk Lotto extended universe. PLU. PU. That's what it should be. All right. So this week's episode, we are talking about an album from the year 1986. I was assigned that year. So a little backstory in 1986. That is the year I was born. And I did a series through this podcast called Dance of Days, where I discussed albums that were released in the year 1986, because I had long thought that the year of my birth was a pretty bad year for music. And the idea of that series was to do deep dives on the year and find the good stuff, and maybe change my mind on whether or not 86 is actually a bad year, or if I just haven't heard the actual good stuff. I did 3 entries of that. You can find them in the feed. They're in the main feed. Each of those I did like 5 albums each. So I've talked about like 15 albums already from 1986 just by myself. Kind of messes up our options for the main show whenever we pull 86.
Yeah, we can do them again. Those don't count.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the stuff is like not very punk, so it was fine to do those. The punkier stuff, there's some stuff out there still that if we hit it a second time, I wouldn't be opposed to. Maybe we do it with a guest, like if a guest comes on and wants to talk about what's the Husker Du record? Candy Apple Gray.
Didn't we do Candy Apple Gray? No, we did Flip Your Wig.
We did Flip Your Wig. No, we didn't do Candy Apple. Yeah.
We did Zen Arcade also.
Yeah. So previous episodes that we've covered from 1986. Episode 258, we discussed REM's Life's Rich Pageant, which I believe is one of the next Michael Shannon REM shows, I believe. We did that one. That was a Patreon sponsored episode by Dave Brown. Episode 208. Yeah, episode 208, 203, and 199 those are the Dance of Days entries that I've done. And then episode 177, we did the Pretty in Pink soundtrack. We did that with Dave Brown, actually, on the show, and he sponsored that one as well. Episode 174, we did Dead Kennedy's Bedtime for Democracy with Justin from the band Sweat, who are in Japan, or they just did a tour of Japan. So cool. Then episode 125, we did Youth of Today's Break Down the Walls. And then we went 124 episodes between 1986. Episode 1, TSOL's Revenge, as well as Born Without a Face's The Unbecoming. The very first episode of Punk Lotto Pod was 1986, which I thought was very funny. I think it was just accidental that it landed on that too. I think we did a true random pull for that year. So it's rough. It's still out there. It's like still our most listened to episode of the podcast because it's the first, and everybody thinks you have to go listen to the first episode of a podcast, but you don't have to do that. If you want to hear low energy versions of us that are not enunciating very well, I guess you could check that out. It's there. So yeah, 86. Done a lot of digging on this year. And currently, I believe 86 is one of your years for your repeating calendar. Explain what that is for people who maybe haven't heard you talk about that.
Okay, so are you familiar with the concept of calendars being reusable? If
Absolutely.
You aren't, you are now. Calendars are reusable because there's only so many days in the week and so many days in the year and so many days in a month. Basically, they're very mathematically predictable as far as which years will have the same day and date. So the calendars will correspond. You can reuse the calendars from specific years in later years. It started as something that I can't even fully explain to you how I arrived at this system, but I have been using it to kind of deep dive on years, deep dive on music in particular. And, I look at movies and stuff, other stuff, from those years from time to time. And I buy, usually every Christmas, I get my wife a tea towel, linen, like kitchen calendar, because they're like nice collectible, vintage calendars from whatever year corresponds with one of the years that corresponds with the upcoming year. And it's a little stocking stuffer tradition, a little gift giving idea. Please don't do it because I don't want the prices to keep going up. So for 2025, the years that have the same day and date, the same exact identical calendar are, as far as what I'm looking at, it goes further back, obviously, but 1958, 1969, 1975, 1986, 1997, 2003, and 2014. And
I want to jump on that real quick. The host of the podcast, you don't even like this show. He buys old calendars that correspond. He's just doing the same thing. He's buying like an old calendar. He currently has a Hangover 3 calendar that he's been using from 2014.
He's on the new end of calendars.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been looking at 86 a fair bit this year so far. It's actually surprisingly been one that I've come back to more than I expected to.
It is surprising because 86 stinks.
I think it maybe starts stronger. It kind of seems like it has a stronger first quarter than some of the other years. I think in like the 90s and 2000s, they were like, oh yeah, don't release anything in January. It doesn't do well. There also could just be discrepancies in the dates, release dates. That is very possible. I find those mistakes all the time. I kind of just roll with whatever Rate Your Music says just for the ease of finding stuff that corresponds to the month I'm in. Because that's kind of also how I make it manageable. So I don't just listen to all the good stuff right off the top. And then I'm like, well, now I'm not going to go listen to this, record that I am skeptical of.
You can't just eat all the fully loaded nachos.
Yeah. You can't hunt around.
Find the best one.
The ones with all the meat and cheese on them. You got to eat just some chips. Because that's part of the fun is like, trying something different that I wouldn't necessarily pick, and been finding good stuff that way. I mean, I do find stuff that I wouldn't have listened to otherwise by just going kind of month to month and saying like, okay, what came out this month in 1975, 1986, 97, And then I might not necessarily find good stuff. Sometimes I listen to stuff that's not very good, but it's at least like, well, now I'm informed on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I one of my big takeaways from doing the Dance of Days series is that like I found good stuff because I'm a firm believer in every single year has good stuff. I mean, it's just literally impossible to not have something good come out in a year. I do feel like it is one of the years with the least amount of good stuff though. And like digging through like the stuff that I found that I really enjoyed, kind of deep stuff, like Blood on the Saddle was one that I like found that and I loved. It's not the most well-known records. So yeah, 86, just the late 80s in general are pretty rough. Like we've done the other years in the late 80s, 87 through 89. They're all pretty rough. I think it's partly due to the fact that punk, especially punk in America, had taken a major shift. And to quote the good, but also, I don't know, not problematic, that's not the right word, but I have issues with the book American Hardcore by Stephen Blush. He says in that book that punk died in 86, hardcore died in 86, nothing's good after that. And I disagree with the concept that nothing good happened after 86. 86 is a big drop off for punk music. So many punk and hardcore bands turned into like crossover thrash bands, which kind of carries out through a good chunk of the rest of the 80s and into the 90s. Crossover finally dies out in the 90s thanks to metalcore kind of taking over. Because like I discussed this in the Metalcore Chronicles series that I do on the Patreon, where a lot of early metalcore is also crossover thrash, because that was really the style of metal that was the most common the punks were and hardcore bands were, borrowing from. Once like death metal becomes a little bigger, that's where metalcore starts to come in. So your Integrities, are really borrowing from like death metal and a little black metal as well. But yeah, very crossover thrash heavy period. It's also a period where there's a lot of goth rock during this time period. It's kind of a boom period for that sound, but it's not a sound that I tend to like gravitate towards. And then a lot of the other bands would start new sounds going forward, but a lot of that stuff's like 87, 88. So like 86 is this weird, like, I don't know what you would call it, like a gap year where everybody took off with a handful of exceptions. So what came out that year that you think is worth pointing out? There's some important records, of course.
Yeah. Brotherhood by New Order. It's a good record.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's an excellent record. One of the best.
I found Tinderbox to be a very enjoyable later Susie the Banshees record when we did our deep dive on Susie and the Banshees.
That's a fun record. I think it's kind of underrated, honestly.
Yeah. The first They Might Be Giants record, or at least the self-titled. I don't think it's the first. I think there might be a demo before that, but
yeah, I think it's the first LP,
proper album.
Yeah, fun album. Eye Against Eye by Bad Brains. That actually might be one of the more standout hardcore records. It's kind of funny that it took so long for this album to come out. This is the third LP, I believe. Right, because it's the self-titled in 82, Rock for Light in 83. And then they waited 3 years to do Eye Against Eye, which it's not as good as those first two, but it's probably the last best Bad Brains record.
It starts to get into their funk metal kind of
Mhm.
thing.
Yeah, quickness. Yeah. And then they just go full like reggae in their later career.
Let's see. An important record that I think someone will eventually twist our arms to talk about. The Age of Quarrel by Cro-Mags. But I don't think I'm ever going to pick that.
It sucks. Like, this is a record that I listened to in my like studying of 86, and I hated it. I do not like the Cro-Mags. I don't even really like Agnostic Front. They have a record that same year too. It's called I think it's like Liberty and Lament. That might be the one that came out that year by them. That's better. I don't love it. I don't like it. It's fine, but I just really don't like that particular brand of New York tough guy hardcore. I genuinely think Age of Quarrel might be one of the most overrated hardcore records of all time. People love it. I don't understand why. I think they just like ignorant hardcore.
Some good hardcore, Can I Say, by Dag Nasty.
Maybe the best record of the entire year.
It's a very good one.
I definitely consider it. Like, I consider that, the New Order record, Candy Apple Grey by Husker Du. Like, I think those are probably the top three best albums of 86.
I'm a big fan of that Feelies record, The Good Earth. A lot softer than their debut record. Lots more like acoustic guitars and a little janglier. Ride the Tiger by Yola Tango. That's a really good record as well.
Yeah, I covered that one on my on the series. Yeah,
one of their more consistently rockin' records.
Yeah,
they hadn't gotten as experimental yet.
That House Martins record's pretty good. London Zero Hole 4. That's actually a pretty fun record. I don't know a ton of House Martins, but that record got imitated. Like the album layout got imitated a lot for some reason. Lifetime imitated it for one of their records.
A Day with Elvis by the Cramps. I listened to that one pretty recently. That's a really good record.
Yeah, that's a fun one.
A record that isn't on streaming, which is prompting me to have an on-air discussion with you about upcoming Halloween Spooktacular plans, and in light of recent news about particular horror punk frontmen and their problematic merchandise. Is this a case of Glenn Danzig died in 1994?
He died after Danzig 4.
Yeah.
Because he didn't put anything else good out after that. Yeah, for those who don't know, this kind of dates the episode, but Danzig did a show recently, and someone took a photo of the merch table, and he has a shirt with a black sun on it, which, if you don't know, is a Nazi logo.
Yeah.
It's like,
and not just a black sun, the Nazi one.
Oh, there's specific versions of the black sun as well.
The black sun is like a Nordic symbol that's existed for hundreds of years before the Nazis picked it up. The Nazis, every Nazi iconography is just taken from somewhere else. Yeah. So he did the Nazi one. He did the SS Nazi one.
A lot of people are like, "Ooh, what is this saying? Is he, supporting this kind of thing?" And there's differing opinions. I'm personally of the opinion, I think Danzig is dumb and doesn't know what that means. I think he is dumb. I've heard him talk. He's dumb.
I think possibly he just doesn't look at his merch. That was my thought.
That too.
That is like, yeah, whatever.
He stamps. He has to approve all of the Misfits merch that gets made, and he just like has a stamp. Just whatever. I don't care. Just get it out of my way. Give me my money for it. So I feel like he probably does not pay attention to what's at his merch table. Makes you wonder who designed it, though.
Someone said that he had done it before, but I haven't seen confirmation of that.
Yeah. Danzig's also dumb enough that I could see him being like,
to have accidentally done it twice.
Yeah. The reason why I don't think it's on purpose with him, at least from his point of view, is that he never really played around with a lot of Nazi iconography in any of his bands.
Right, when it would have made sense in the 80s to be like playing with Nazi imagery.
Yeah, and you could get away with it, He never played with that stuff. So that's why I don't think it's on purpose. Maybe the designer did it on purpose, whoever that was, but
Well, doesn't We just mentioned the Cro-Mags. Didn't one of them have a swastika on tattoo at one point?
I don't know. I don't know shit about those guys. I know they're all just dumb meatheads who get in fights all the time, but
Who am I thinking of? There might be somebody else I'm thinking of with a swastika tattoo.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's a chance Danzig's probably a Republican. And I kind of could see that. But also Danzig also strikes me as a I don't vote kind of guy too. So, yeah. Weird guy.
Anyway,
Only getting weirder as the older he gets.
just a little digression there.
Yeah.
We'll cross that bridge, I guess, when we get to it. See if he doubles down on it.
You wanna know what else sucks from 1986? I bet you know.
Enjoy by Descendants.
Yeah, absolutely. That is 100% what I was thinking of. That record sucks so much. There's like one good song on it. And it's like during a period where they were good. Like the records on either side of it are good. I Don't Want to Grow Up and all. I like those. This was just them being like, let's make fart jokes for an album. And it stinks. I hate it.
A record I talked about on an I'm Listening sometime this year, Land of the Lost by the Wipers, Slept On. Solid record. Really
Definitely
good.
slept on. There's some cool stuff from this year, like stuff that I liked that I would have eventually done an episode on in that series had I continued it. But like specifically like the Gangrene record from that year, pretty good. Another Wasted Night. I think might be their first LP. It's before they went crossover too. It's their second. They had one called King of Bands in '85. Weirdly, that Nuclear Assault record is pretty fun. The one that came out that year. I think that Crumbsuckers album, like there's some pretty decent crossover thrash, and I'm not even like a big crossover thrash guy, but I listened to a couple records from that year and I was like, oh, I like that.
Yeah, I think a lot of the most interesting stuff gets a little bit obscure. I mean, D. Croixon,
Mm-hmm.
the Triffids,
Yeah, that's a fun record.
Let's Active.
Yeah, they're
That's
good.
their record that year.
I mean, we have an early Shonen Knife record here too. Pretty
Yeah.
Little Baka Guy. Is it the first? No, they have one in. No, God, they had 3 before this one. They started in '82. They're touring the U.S. again. Nowhere near me, unfortunately, but yeah, strong year. I guess I can get into the stuff I almost picked, and I sent you like my options, and your response was weird records.
Yeah, weird. You said some weird choices.
Yeah, so these were records that I had kind of like earmarked for future episodes of the Dance of Days, and I retired that series primarily because I was just like, I kind of lost interest in it. I think I proved the point that I was going for, that the year overall is not very good, but I just found some good stuff that I wanted to point out. So some of the records that I was considering The Fall's Ben Sinister. We've been threatening to do The Fall for so long. We really should do one of these one day. I believe that's one of the bigger records in their discography. I also was considering The's Infected. The. It's like an art pop, synth pop type record. I normally don't like that kind of stuff. I really like that record. It's a really fun album. It's weird, but it's entertaining, and there's some hooks there. The artiness does not, decide to remove any of the fun from their music. Naked Ray Gun released All Rise, which was the follow-up to Throb Throb, which we did an episode on. All Rise and Jettison are the best Naked Ray Gun albums. I think I like Jettison a little better, but All Rise is excellent. I think we eventually decided not to do that one because so many Naked Ray Gun records sound the same. And Throb Throb we could probably do another one, considering Throb Throb was like kind of rough for them and their sound, but they're mostly there. The record that I most wanted to do, that was like my number 2 choice, and I actually kind of struggled with deciding on which one to do, was Sig Sig Sputnik's Flaunt It. I listened to it again this week. It's weird. Like the record's weird. This is a weird record too. It's a synth punk, new wavy sample punk, I guess. I don't even know how you would describe their actual sound. It's very like music collage sort of stuff. Lots of sampling. It's a fun record. When we do 86 again, and it's my turn to choose it, that might be the one we do. So brace yourself. It's a weird record that I really was strongly considering it. And then that leads us to the record we're actually talking about today. So I got the year 1986, and I selected The Ungovernable Force by Conflict.
Announcements for the next are coming from a father and like out to be scapegoat to the screen. What a lady lets up double cream. Mr. Noonan plans and dreams. First that means deception, let's be clever. We can fall apart. Secondly, attempts are made to cover up mistakes they made. When all else shows the boot boy jumping kid out in blue. The rest is left to the imagination. You get the point or they'll get you. Some people said no more and explain carefully their resistance. Make plans on staying underground and up to overthrow the system. Moves around and feelings spread, the victories were made. They raised their mighty fist again. I drove down all on passive resistance, shut on through their legs together. Bob that
And some stats on the band. They were from Eltham, South London, England. They formed in 1981, and this was released August 1986 on Mortar Hate Records. This is the band's third full-length studio album, and the personnel is Paul Hoddy on bass, Paco, a.k.a. Francisco Carreno, on drums, Kevin Webb on guitar, Colin Jerwood on vocals, Mandy Spokes on vocals, and Steve Flack on vocals. 3 vocalists in this band. And we have additional vocals. These are mostly like backing vocals. We have the band's Exit Stance and Liberty. All of the bands. Steve Flack is also a member of Liberty. We also have Ian O'Higgins, Keith Hancock, Carrie Bovell, Maria Carreno, and Steve Maycock. And the record was produced by the band and engineered by Ian O'Higgins. So, Conflict. What is your experience with the band Conflict?
None. I have never heard Conflict. When you said that's the one you picked, I was like, what? You had sent the records to me, and I forgot that that was one of the records that you sent to me. That's how little I know Conflict.
Yeah, so for me, I selected this record for a couple reasons. Personally, never had a Conflict period in my life. I didn't listen to a ton of anarcho-punk. Like, I've listened to Crass records, but I never had a Crass period when I was younger. I listened to Crass mostly through this podcast. So it's not even like a thing that I would have had on my radar. For the longest time, the only thing I knew about Conflict was there was a Nothing Nice to Say Mitch Clem strip where he was doing like pun names and called them Cornflict. And I've in my brain have called them Cornflict ever since I read that strip. But yeah, no experience with the band prior to the Dance a Day series, where I was going through 86 and just like listening to as much as I possibly could. Like, that was part of my rule, is like, I have to listen to it. I mean, I could stop listening to it if I didn't like it, but I had to at least start it. Like, that was kind of my rule. And I remember putting this record on, being like, all right, here's Conflict. I mean, I knew who they were, but I'd never listened to them before. And I listened to it and I loved it. And I don't know if this was a case of I was going through like a stretch of records that I was not loving, and I hit this as sort of an oasis in a sea of an oasis in a sea. That's not, I'm mixing my metaphors there. A oasis in the desert of not great records. And just something about this record just really clicked with me in a way that a lot of other albums from 86 didn't. And so I fully intended to cover it on the next Dance of Days I did. We even got a message on Facebook. I don't know if you ever saw this. If you message us on Facebook, it takes us forever to find out that you messaged us, because whenever it comes from like another account, Facebook is horrible about notifying you. So I remember we got like a message from someone who was following us on Facebook and said, you should cover Conflict's Ungovernable Force and let me come on and talk about it. I don't know who this guy was. He might have been in a band, but I was just like, and I told him I had already like earmarked it for a future project. But I was like, hey, let's do that episode. I wonder if that guy's still listening. Message us, not on Facebook, if you are still listening to us. So yeah, that was why I listened to Conflict, and why I chose it for this episode. It was a record that just piqued my interest. And I guess let's do some backstory on the band. So, like I said, they formed in 81 in Eltham, which is like a community in South London. The way cities are set up and counties and all this stuff in England is so weird. But the band originally consisted of Colin Jerwood, Steve Gittins, John Clifford, Pauline Beck, and Paco. And they started playing in the underground UK punk scene and actually managed to gain a pretty significant following thanks to the band Crass giving them the seal of approval. They released their debut EP, The House That Man Built, in 1982 on Crass Records. And that was then followed by their first full-length album, It's Time to See Who's Who, in 1983 on Corpus Christi Records. Pauline Beck would drop out of the band at this time. And in 1983, the band formed their own record label called Mortar Hate, which was a label designed to put out like-minded music. This is very similar to what Crass did. Crass had Crass Records, and they had their own, I think they even had some other imprints too. The idea was they were independent bands and they were putting their own stuff out. So Mortar Hate was meant to be another anarcho-punk label. And they released their second album, Increase the Pressure, in 1984. That comes out on Mortar Hate. So one of the things that Conflict is, they were a narco-punk band. They stood for anarchism, animal rights. They were very big anti-war people. Their logo comes from like a nuclear disarmament logo that they kind of like reworked. They were supporters of the anarchist group Class War, which eventually became a actual political party in 2015. And it kind of reminds me of like Crime Think here in the US and how like bands like Catharsis and Zagoda were associated with Crime Think. And so because of this like connection, they would play lots of shows, and a lot of them would end in riots. Like one of them is like this famous like show that was like, I think they recorded a live album named after it. I'm blanking on the name of it, but it was like a play on the Feeding the 50,000. It had a similar name to that one. But yeah, they were big, very politically active, very, very anarchist. Shows would end in riots. And then in 1986, they would put out 2 live records. They would do From Protest to Resistance and Only Stupid Bastards Help EMI. The proceeds of those records were used to help bail out anarchist activists who were arrested. So like they were literally putting their money where their mouth was. They made money to turn around and help the anarchist cause. So they wound up recording this record at Rockfield Studios with Ian O'Higgins. And Rockfield is a famous studio in Monmouth, Wales, that everyone is recorded at, most notably Queen, Motorhead, Black Sabbath, the Waterboys. Just very active very active studio that's still putting out. Artists are still recording there. And that Ian O'Higgins, he had previously recorded with Shriekback, the Vibrators, Robin Hitchcock, and the Angelic Upstarts. And in the same year that this record came out, he worked with Johnny Thunders and the Heartbreakers, the Soup Dragons, which is very early for them, Osgang, and Fields of the Nephilim. And this is Paul Hotty's first album with Conflict. He would have replaced the original bassist, John Clifford. And this is also Kevin Webb's first album, and he's replacing the guitarist Steve Gittins, who was on the first 2 records. Yeah, that's a good point to stop there. So that's a little bit of the backstory. And now I'm going to let you talk for a little bit. So what'd you think of this record?
It's fine. Yeah, I kind of gathered what their deal was pretty much immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Like once
you mean
put it,
the opening track?
Yeah. Once I put it on, I was like, oh, right. 80s anarcho punk. Okay. Yeah. All right. Cool. Cooler in theory. I like what they're about. And it is cool to see that they were like truly like living it and doing the stuff and not just having an image. I did not love this record. I hate it, but
right.
It just gave me so little to really latch on to musically. And I think like the stuff that stood out to me the most on this record was the stuff that sounded the least like what they most consistently sound like. Just like how that whole intro track is just like, it was almost like it's got the talking, it's got the clip, the sample, but then it has like that big like neo crust kind of like big old riff, the lead guitar part. And I'm like, then the rest of it, I was just like, oh yeah, it's kind of 80s UK hardcore crust, kind of generic, not really blowing my mind. I think definitely the big thing that I was thinking the whole time I was listening to it was just like, justify yourself. These weird choices, and then this is what you pick.
Okay, I guess justifying this, I shouldn't like this. This is not a record this style of record is not one that I tend to particularly enjoy. I don't listen to Crass very much. Like Crass's DNA is all over this record. They were the biggest band following Crass that kind of was in their same, footsteps, to the point that like Steve Ignorant literally joined the band in like 1987. So, as soon as Crass ends and Conflict is the one who's left in their place, and I think that's part of why they also became such a big deal. I think timing wise, this record was also their best, and it's regarded as their best by most everyone who's heard it. I think it does some things that weren't tired yet at this point. Like, there's definitely stuff in here that, because it's 86 and it hasn't been done to death by like crust bands in the 90s and 2000s, that feels pretty important for the time. I don't listen to a lot of like that UK 82 stuff. Like, I don't listen to a lot of Exploited. Like, there's like one Exploited record I've listened to like all the way through that's pretty good. It's one of their like well-regarded ones, but like, again, I don't listen to a ton of that stuff. So yeah, it's not a period that I listen to very much from. And like I said, it could have been just because of what I had been listening to from 86 that made this stand out so much to me, that it just was like, that's a good record. I really just enjoyed the full experience of listening to this album, because the opening track that's a great way to hook people. It's full of tons of like samples, clips from, speeches. Like there's like a whole thing about, it's a very nuclear war centric opening. You cannot win a nuclear war was the basic idea. That guitar riff, the huge riff. It feels like there's horns on that too, which is funny because there's none credited anywhere. But the next record, they have a horn player in the band. So my guess is those are real horns. It's not like a song. It's just an intro, but it's a killer intro. And it leads right into the Ungovernable Farce, which is just this fast-paced, ugly bass tone, lots of fun feedback, fun drums, fun vocals. Like, it just, to me, like that first song, it is jumping right into what the record's going to be. And I think one of the things that I really enjoyed about this whole record is every single track blends into the next one, which in 1986 was not common. Like, I tried to even think of stuff that I maybe would have heard from that same year that did the same thing, and I couldn't find any examples. I'm sure it was done before them, but like I said, it wasn't that frequently used of a concept. That even today, it's still not that common. Like, you have to have like a cohesive vision for the album, I think, to pull that off well. I think in the 2000s, you saw a lot more of that kind of stuff, like lots more like interstitial, static samples between tracks, whole tracks that are just made up entirely of samples and static and feedback and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I think that worked on me too, because it feels like one big album. Some songs, they do a cool thing where it's just like a song will not even really end, but then become another song. Like, it's just like it'll just go from track, I think it happens on track 2 to 3. It goes from the Ungovernable Farce into A Piss in the Ocean. There's no gap between those songs. It feels like one big song when you're listening to it. And it does it a few times throughout the record. Like, they just blend right into the next track. So much so that like it feels like one big song instead of 2 or 3 different tracks in a row. And I think I just really enjoyed that whole presentation.
It definitely stands out for the time period. I ultimately don't think it worked for me. Too many of the songs didn't have like really clear, definitive stops and starts, where it was just kind of added to the not being able to latch on to anything of listening to this record for me.
The Home Secretary, Mr. Douglas Hurd, said anarchist groups had been in London stirring up trouble, and he warned that the police are ready to use CS gas and plastic bullets. He said, "I will not shrink from such a decision." It was the worst rioting ever seen on mainland Britain. All the police attempted to do was hold their ground. Organisation amongst the rioters was apparent, with crates of petrol bombs being moved up and some groups assigned to dig up paving slabs and other masonry for use as ammunition. The onslaught on the police lines were relentless and merciless. Small groups of police were hurt by pellets and a .38 bullet. The rioters forced the policemen to retreat.
Fuck off, you failed while oppress your tenants are a nation. Fuck off, you
it's definitely like if I play a single song, there's enough there. Like I can definitely see why people would be into this band, and it's like the same with Crass. Like I can see what people like about them. It doesn't do much for me.
Yeah, I
ultimately, but it's just like it's one of those things where it's like it's in that awkward place of like kind of like middle good, like almost neither, like probably good or even possibly really good or great for what it is, but what it is not something I know enough about or care enough about. You know, like I haven't had that like hook in me with most crust, which I would call this crust, right? I mean,
Yeah, I mean it's it's before crust is like its own thing, but it's this record's a huge influence on crust punk. Crass is too, but yeah, I think Conflict more so. I like Doom is as well.
Yeah.
Who's the other one from the same time period? But yeah, there were a couple that were like pre-crust. Doom might be like the actual first crust band, but
right, but like anarcho punk, like Subhumans, Rudimentary Peni, Nausea, Amoebics.
Yeah. There is something. I think this may be a case of like a total package type deal. Like I think context might be the very essential to kind of enjoying this band. They are the literal successors of Crass. They are the biggest band to follow them. Like they had shows with like thousands of people would show up to. Like they had big shows. They were big. And like I said, this lends to that like riots after their shows, which is very much a thing that would happen in the LA punk scene.
Yeah.
A little before this time, but still. Yeah, actually, no, it would have been like the earlier records. They would have had those riots too. So yeah, it would have been around the same time that those, Black Flag is considered, a danger to society. It's like the ethos, DIY. It's the actual like politics that they talk about in their music. It's probably the live show. I don't know exactly what the live show looked like. I didn't look anything up from this time period. I imagine the live show was wild. Maybe not good, but a big show.
Yeah. Probably really sloppy.
Yeah. I mean, because I actually listened to the album before this one too. I did my album sandwich that I haven't done in a while, where I listened to, what was it called? Increase the Pressure. I listened to that, which is like a half live record. And that one just kind of sounds like Crass. And then I listened to the record after, which is the one where Steve Ignorant joins the band from Crass. And that one kind of just sounds like Crass too. And this one, I feel like was the most different sounding. It's a little like, it's similar to Crass, but it's not the exact same thing that the previous, like the record before and the record after do. There are moments on this record that really stand out to me, like moments in some songs that really stand out to me. Like in A Piss in the Ocean, where they do the Anarchy in the UK riff. Like that piqued my interest the first time I heard it, and then again when I listened to it again to prep for this, it's like, oh yeah, I need to make a note of that. Like that really stood out to me. Which that riff is in that song because that song is about the Sex Pistols, because the song is basically talking about how the youth were disgruntled and they needed someone to help focus their like rage and attention at the time, which would have been almost a decade before. Like, Never Mind the Bollocks came out in 1977. So we're talking about this record comes out nearly 10 years later. And the idea is like, we needed them at that exact moment. We needed a band to represent the youth culture and the dissatisfaction with what's happening in this country, meaning England. Because this is Thatcher's England. 86 is still Thatcher's England. And the Sex Pistols were that band. They were the four, because they talk about them as the four. They don't talk about the individual members. And then the song goes on to talk about how, and then the money came in and ruined it all, and they turned into celebrities and turned their backs on a lot of what they stood for and just kind of embraced the capitalist side of things. Like they were not anarchists. They were not. Right. They sang about anarchy, but they weren't actually anarchists.
Right. And they weren't. They politically weren't. They were using anarchy in the UK and as just let's cause chaos in the street.
Yeah. It's a fuck you Sex Pistols song, which in 86, that's kind of cool that they did that. I'm sure Crass felt the same way too, earlier, but so that song is then immediately followed by the song CRASS, which is a song about Crass. And how Crass really did stand for what they talked about. And it's true, they did. I mean, I think even today they are still fairly aligned with their stances they had back then. I think I was reading that like Penny Rimbault from Crass is now like an anti-vaxxer, so that's cool.
Yeah.
Oh, don't worry, there's some stuff about Colin Sherwood we'll get into later. So yeah, it's kind of a cool like fuck you Sex Pistols for not living up to the expectations of what we wanted, and then Crass is what we wanted. You know, this is the band. That is then followed by Custom Rock, which is a take on the Clash's Combat Rock, which is the hated Clash record where they went like just pure commercial. And that's another record just talking about music industry and you know. So it's kind of cool. They did three tracks in a row that are specifically about the Pistols, Crass, and the Clash. So I really like that element of it. This is a record that like, I'm not a lyrics guy, but I went and read the lyrics of this whole record, and it makes it work a lot more. It makes some of the, because you don't really know what they're saying, because it's three vocalists. They're singing over each other in a lot of places. They're not very clear singers, you know, so it's like a really rough, gargly vocals that, you know, you can't really tell what he's singing anyway.
Yeah, it mostly sounds like garbled. Oh, you know, kind of working class British.
Yeah, so like there's stuff about, you know, the music industry on this record. Like there's Metal Mania, which is a song about metal bands being like, look at all this cool shit I can do, but also how they don't actually like stand for anything and are just more pro-capitalist bands. I'm trying to think if there's other like music specific songs, because there's political songs on there too. Yeah, I think that's it as far as those topics are concerned. And then they get into the political stuff. So let's see, where my notes start. The title track, The Ungovernable Force, that is a song about the coming revolution, basically saying we wanted to be nonviolent. We wanted to do things peacefully through protest, but you, meaning like the cops and the political, you know, the main political parties in London, made that impossible. Like the album cover has like the riot cop, you know, like shooting, I guess it's like a gas pellet gun or something.
Yeah.
Straight at the camera. And then like all the artwork around the cover is just riot. Like the back cover is just riot cops. Like the whole thing is, it's a very anti-cop record. And so like that song is basically saying like, all right, the revolution's coming for you, like for real. And now we know what happened. You know, this was 86. I don't think there was any true like anarchist revolution that wound up happening in London, you know, in England at the time.
Yeah. A common problem with anarchists.
Yeah.
We're not very good at the long term.
Yeah. And also when there's like a concentrated effort to like kind of break it up and to cause instability within that scene is also another factor. There are forces at work, counter forces at work within anarchism that, and you know, anarchist groups specifically that try and dismantle any actual movement. But apparently at this time, though, it was considered like this is the most power that they've ever had in London. Like this was like the most interest in a group like that to exist in London in this fashion, at least. So like they thought they literally thought we have a chance. We can actually do something here. And this reading the lyrics of that song, I was like, man, there's something to take. There's something to take from this song in 2025 here that still resonates today. Like there's some stuff in there that's just like, yeah, we need to go do a revolution. Won't happen, but we need to. So then there's Force of Service. That song is sung from the point of view of the police committing the brutality. Much like our Stiff Little Fingers record, there's some slurs in this song, but it's very, very obvious. The whole song is like written from the cop's point of view. And so it works a little better. It is a case of shouldn't be the ones using the word, but the whole song is just like cop point of view, like every part of it. Even the part of the end of the song where they just go, "We eat Kentucky Fried Chicken. We eat Kentucky Fried Chicken." And then they have the song "The Arrest," and that song is an instruction manual for what to do if you get arrested during direct action. And it says, "Don't talk. You have a right to remain silent. If they ask you questions, say no comment. You know, do not give them anything. They will use it against you. Learn officers' names. Memorize any badge numbers from any like abusive cops that you run into." It's not so much a song as it's just an instruction manual on what to do if you get arrested at an anarchist demonstration. Which reminds me of that. Who is the band that did the song about how to clean your needles if you're doing intravenous drugs. Is it 15 maybe?
Maybe, yeah.
It's and like the chorus is just like squeeze out the water, suck up the water all the way to the top, press it all the way out again. Do this 3 times. It's like an instruction manual on how to like, not make yourself, catch a virus or a disease. So that's neat. The Day Before is about nuclear destruction, which has to be named after that TV movie, the nuclear TV movie. I think it's called The Day After. I think that's what that's called. And that's a song that talks about like it's the 4-minute warning, and how like the 4-minute warning is not going to save you. And then this is the A.L.F, which is about the Animal Liberation Front, which is like one of their most like direct animal rights songs on this album. So yeah, it lyrically, it's the kind of stuff that I resonate with the most. I think we had a discussion in our Discord with some people, and I think Dr. Goodfriend Corey was asking like, what is it? What kind of lyrics do you like? Because I was talking about how I'm just like, I just don't pay attention to a lot of lyrics, and the lyrics that I do like, I was like, I think I really like the political, social kind of lyrics, especially in like hardcore and punk. Like I really like that kind of lyric, especially if it's like, I don't know, if it's just a emotional release from that kind of thing. I don't know. I've always kind of like really dug into that. Maybe that's why I love the Dead Kennedys for, and Stiff Little Fingers, like they're politically active punk bands. Weirdly, I didn't love like Bad Religion growing up, but maybe it's the way he sang or wrote those lyrics and sang those songs. They're a little bit more dry,
big
academic
words.
It's more like dry academia than anger. I mean, there's some angry songs, but yeah. So this was a record I really just like dug into the lyrics, really enjoyed it. I liked the whole album approach, the whole one piece of music. Felt very cinematic to me. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not alone. This is considered their best record. It's considered the most cohesive album that they ever put together, and one that really represents all of their beliefs and puts it all together in a way that no other record they ever put out ever did. And they have a lot.
What does direct action mean? It means that you are no longer prepared to sit back and allow terrible, cruel things to happen. The cameraman in Ethiopia took direct action. He filmed the worst disaster that has ever happened to human beings. He realised it was too enormous a problem to handle himself, so he took the films home and hoped that other people would help. They did. Are you prepared to sit back any longer? Direct action in animal rights means causing economic damage to those who abuse and make profits from exploitation. Start.
It's possible to do things alone, less times you have lost, which is where the fast and furious mess with the bang up the lot. From paint up shops and houses, paint scribblers, great on cars, chewing gunsticks, roads and fur coats, I see things that just don't start. Sending the petrol train means that delivery's going nowhere. When the deaths of Owens, I make sure the first person to read it. If the circus comes to town and everyone goes, I must come down. Don't keep sneering to their piece of self, don't leave me no boy leather. Born on animal testing, make up purple silent shepherd's spout. Trying for the group of people that you know that you can trust. Grab on business, direct action, someone's whiskey for a mask. Only when you have animal liberation will we obtain human freedom. When the last vivisectionist brain is snapped, it will get one step nearer to peace. Direct action in the animal movement is sus and strong, and our final goal is not far off.
Do you have any? So, what specific things about this record didn't really work for you?
I don't know. I think maybe the biggest thing is really just the flow of it didn't work for me. And yeah, I don't know. It's just that this general sound. It's just like, okay, like I don't know. It's one of those really frustrating listens of like, this is not annoying me, but I'm not invested. So like, because it's not annoying me, I can't single out things that I don't like about it. Like any really particular complaints about it, I feel like are just nitpicky, and like I honestly don't think they hold up under investigation. Like it's just kind of like, because I don't care. The mix doesn't bother me. The vocals don't really bother me. I think the guitars could be louder and fuller sounding, but like there's plenty of other stuff that the guitars sound like this. Like I feel like in terms of like mix and like fidelity, this doesn't sound that different from than like the Poison Idea record that came out in '86, King of Punk. And it's like I like that record. I think that's a good record. I engage with those songs, but like I don't engage with these songs in particular. And I think flow is a big part of it, and I think just generally like the style of punk it is. A lot of the music is a vehicle for the words, but I have to read the words anyway to understand them, to get what they're saying. So like it almost doesn't really even make sense to write your songs that way, because like, you know, they're not that decipherable, not that easy to sing along with. So it's like, I guess I would have wanted more from it musically to really stand out. And like there's stuff that does stand out that's like not the driving fast songs that are the bulk of the record. And it's like, and I really like how the bass sounds. The bass is one of those really big standout things. Like I joke about like how it's that, it's that tone or that sound. Like I do think it sounds cool. That is the best thing musically that's happening.
Yeah, musically it's a 3-piece, which is guitar, bass, and drums. And you're right, the bass is like the best part of those 3 elements. The drumming's pretty cool, but like it's not loud enough. The guitars aren't loud enough either. Guitars are too quiet. I interrupt you.
And there's there's like the kind of fun like ping-pongy, like somebody in one ear, somebody in the other ear, like of the vocals doing that kind of thing, which is fun, and they're really fast. Which for the time period, this is like some of the fastest stuff.
Yeah, I mean, besides like hardcore stuff in the U.S., there's some fast stuff there, but Dead Kennedys, Jello having some fast songs, but especially that record, Bedtime for Democracy, is like their fastest album. So I think ultimately like the overall package and presentation and message, like all of that is what I like about the record. Like it's the way everything flows together, the interstitial kind of pieces between songs, the way that a song does kind of stop and end without any actual separation or change what they're doing. Like the whole overall like album is what I enjoy about this record, I think. And then the lyrics and everything. I think the songs themselves as pieces of music, what stands out by themselves? Not many,
Metal Mania, Dear Breast.
I think Ungovernable Force, the title track.
Yeah.
That one stands out. That might be the best song, at least. And I listened
Force
to
or Service has a pretty singable.
Oh, so that's the song that has that guitar riff. That the Offspring straight up ripped off that riff. It's the same riff as Walla Walla on Americana.
I thought it sounded familiar.
It's the exact same riff.
It's not a hard riff to accidentally come up with.
Yeah, but also Offspring were known for ripping off other artists.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess this is the A.L.F. kind of stands on its own because it's like kind of slow, has the acoustic guitar before the full band comes in. The Day Before, I think, kind of works on its own because it follows the instrumental track. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff though. It works better in pairs. Like Ungovernable Farce and The Piss in the Ocean is one big song, even though they have completely different lyrics.
I think a song like Custom Rock is really good because it's a pretty straightforward song and it sounds the least like any of their other straightforward songs. Like it sounds like a different band entirely.
Yeah, there's a post-punky element to that song.
Yeah,
like a walking bass in there too.
It's got kind of like a Wire vibe. Like a little bit of a.
Yeah, so like I get that, and I get there's not really any hooks. There's very few hooks on this record.
Yeah, which that's one of the things that really hurt, to where it's just like there's nothing I can sing along to. There's not even like a riff that takes its place.
Right, because a lot of times like Crust records don't have like hooks in the like choruses or in the vocals. Usually there's not usually that many hooks in the vocals in Crust bands. The hooks in those bands tend to come from the riffs usually. Like listen to like a Holy Mountain record. Like there's some fun riffs on those records. I don't know why that was the Crust band I went to first. Like Tragedy.
Yeah.
Sick riffs in Tragedy. From Ashes Rise. So many cool riffs. Drop Dead. Gauze. Like the Japanese hardcore. Not quite Crust, but yeah, that's the thing that makes those bands stand out is the guitars usually. And there's not really many riffs on this record that stand out. There's a couple, but not a lot. So there's no riffs. Honestly, the bass has more riffs than the guitar does. There's no riffs. There's no hooks. The mix sucks. I don't think it's a good mix. There are tracks that are just like the volume from track to track, from the opening to the first song, the volume like drops in half. I was reading one review that talked about how it's like songs will just go from stereo to mono within the song.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that is. My guess is it's like the band and the engineer being like, let's try some weird shit. And that's the stuff I think doesn't work. Like weird, like why is this instrument that much louder than all the other instruments? You know, the mono to the stereo, from song to song volume differences. Like it's a messy mix. I would like to hear this like remixed and cleaned up a little.
Probably not possible. I assume those tapes are.
Yeah, probably not. And yeah, it's a crust band too. It's kind of also part of the thing. It's like, no, it's supposed to be this way.
We're not going to remix our record for your commercial appeal.
The Crass did it. Crass has like remixed and remastered their stuff like multiple times throughout the years. So Crass keeps that shit in print.
Yeah, Crass needs to sustain themselves.
That's true. That is what they are sustaining themselves on, are those records.
They're not doing anything else for work.
Yeah. Well, we're all working on a farm together. I don't know what type of version they are now, but yeah. So like, I get it. Like I said at the top, this is not the kind of record I normally like, but there was just something about this one that just worked for me in a way that their own other records don't. And Crass doesn't work for me. I want to like Crass more than I do. I listened to some this week, and it just doesn't work for me. Because again, it's no hooks. The riffs aren't anything special. I think the one that I would probably get the most like actual enjoyment out of is probably Penis Envy, and that's the one that was like only the women sang on that record, and it's doing something different musically too. I mean, I get it. I get what you don't like about it. Yeah, it just hit me.
Yeah, it's nothing that I even like strongly dislike.
Yeah,
like it truly never bothered me listening to it. I just glossed over so much of it.
Yeah,
which is always sounds worse when you talk about it. When you say like, oh yeah, I had a hard time paying attention to that. It's like almost the worst thing you could say about a record.
Yeah,
because there's not a conversation there.
No, yeah. I think there were enough little pieces of the music that makes it interesting for me as a whole. Well, let's do everything after. So this would be Kevin Webb's only album with Conflict, which you have to wonder. He's not on the one before. He's not on the one after. This is the one that everybody likes.
Yeah.
It's like, maybe it was him. I mean, but he's the guitar player, and he's not even that loud and present in the mix. This is the first with Paul Hottie, the bass player. I think he adds a lot to it.
He's loud as shit.
Yeah, he's like the loudest instrument on the record. He's louder than the vocals in some places. Yeah. I mean, Colin Jarwood is kind of like the star of the band. He's the only consistent member of the band. He's still in the band today. Nobody else is still in the band from this era. But yeah, so this is Kevin Webb's only record. After this, Steve Ignorant comes in. He joins as one of the multiple vocalists they have in the band. Also, they have multiple vocalists, and you can't really tell the difference in too many of them. Except for, like, what's her name? Mandy Spokes. Like, I should let her sing more.
Yeah. I mean, you can kind of tell that they're different vocalists because of how often they come from different places in the stereo field.
Yeah, that's usually it. I think Steve Flack might have the lower voice, too. I think he's the one who does, like, the lower, more like almost a Lemmy voice that you hear occasionally. And then Colin does most of them. There is that song that has like the reggae breakdown in it in the middle of it. I think that's Steve Maycock, and he was like a musician in London, but he wasn't on any other well-known projects, just the Conflict records that he appeared on. So yeah, they would continue to release records. The Final Conflict in 1988, Against All Odds in 1989, Conclusion in 93, It's Time to See Who's Now. Oh, It's Time to See Who's Now, which is a re-recording of It's Time to See Who's Who, which is their first record. That comes out in 94. There's No Power Without Control in 2003. They are still active today. Colin Jarwood is the only remaining member. And they have a record coming out this month, April 2025. They have an album coming out called This Much Remains. It's their first album since 2003. It's their first album in over 20 years. But Conflict are not without their controversies, especially around Colin. In 2003, they released a song called An Option, which is a song that is about It's an anti-asylum seeker song. It's a xenophobic, our government needs to keep you out of our country song, which is a slap in the face of the lyrics and the politics of everything they've ever done before.
Is it a sincere?
So they claim the song was a parody mimicking the people at that time in London who were saying these kind of things.
Yeah.
Which they have a record of doing that. The song on here
Yeah.
that's written from the cop point of view is like, that's offensive as fuck. Like if you read the lyrics, it's rough. Whereas like the Stiff Little Finger song on the last episode was like offensive because he just put every word in it. It's just like, what are you? Oh, that's terrible. This one, you can feel the like actual hate in the lyrics. That makes it actually worse, I think, as far as it's an effective songwriting technique because he really gets in there as that. But so, yeah, they say it was in a character. It was a parody song, that kind of thing. Who knows? I mean, Dead Kennedy's got accused of that kind of stuff too.
I mean, I would think that based on the context of what all of their other songs are about and what I don't see how enforcing borders is something that can be reconciled with anarchist politics. It's just not.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it really goes against the whole concept and message. So, okay,
that's what I'm inclined to believe them just based on that. I don't know enough about the context of their career and if they've said other things, done other things that like makes it more questionable. But
well, there are some other things that make this a little bit more questionable. So apparently he was friends with some guy back in the 80s who was like this. He was like a right wing guy in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And like who eventually became a Nazi, and he was like buddies with that guy, and people were like, what the fuck is that? Why are you friends with that guy? I don't know anything about him, exactly who that person was, or there's like a Reddit thread that talks about it, but I don't know. Maybe it's just like, he's my one right wing friend that I can talk to. You have those people in your life,
Yeah.
You don't agree with every single person. I guess it just depends on how close you are to, but whatever. That's one thing that people point out. In 2016, Conflict were playing at a venue. It's one of those upstairs downstairs venues, and they were playing upstairs, and there was a black metal band playing downstairs, and I don't remember the name of that band's name. They're not really famous. And so like before Conflict plays, he wanders downstairs to see, who's playing down there and see what's going on. And he goes in, and it's a black metal band. It's one of those black metal bands that has pig heads on stage.
Yeah. They love doing that.
They fucking love that shit. As you well know, Conflict are a very strong animal rights band. So he snaps, pulls out a knife, and starts threatening like everyone within reach, including a 16-year-old girl.
More Bozadad was the band.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Never heard of that band before. But yeah, he flips out, and yeah. Eventually, they guess they calm him down enough that he goes upstairs and plays the set like nothing happened. Very weird. And then during the George Floyd protests in 2020, he posted on social media, "Animal lives matter." And he's not the first. He's not the first animal rights person I've ever heard of doing that kind of thing, especially in that time period. There is a certain subset of animal rights people who it's just like that's the only thing they care about.
Yeah.
I guess you might call them eco-fascists, but some of them are. Some of the most fucked up shit I've ever seen online is from like vegans. There is a subset that's just like, too hard.
We don't care what happens to human beings. Yeah.
Yeah. They don't care about humans at all. Yeah. And so those are like the big things. People are like, he's got a really bad mental health decline, and other people are like, he's still doing lots of drugs. So like, could be the case, but he's a controversial guy. It all stems mainly from later, post 2000 stuff. So this may be a case of, oh man, too bad, Colin Jerwood died in 1986, like we were talking earlier. But yeah, it's on Spotify. This has a lot of bonus material on it. It's 50 minutes on Spotify. It's like a 31-minute album with a bunch of bonus content. So, and then Kevin Webb would pass away in 2019, Kevin Webb would pass away in 1999, and then Paco would pass away in 2015. So they've lost a couple people, but that is
Apparently
it.
There's possibly an anti-abortion song as well.
That I've heard. I saw that too. Which that
it
also
seems like
kinda,
he's just gone off the deep end.
Well, the anti-abortion song kind of goes in with there are it's like an ultra hardline veganism that's like you can't harm any life, including fetuses. So I've seen that argument online
That's
too.
a weird one.
It's weird. There's a weird.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, sure. Yeah, you can be a vegan, you can be a hardline vegan and be a racist piece of shit.
Yeah.
There's plenty of those.
Hitler was a vegetarian.
Yeah.
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 Complicated.
Yeah, it could definitely be a case of like the spirit of where their politics came from was good, but then they've just like over the years it's just been addled by drugs and
yeah.
Yeah, and it could be just like at a certain point you just actually stopped believing that shit and you just like kept the image for the sake of it.
I mean, there were some comments I read that
like
said
certain like Laura Jane Grace being like my scab friend, my
my union busting
friend, sweatshop owner.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that happens a lot. You get some of these punks get old and then they kind of become cynical and lose a lot of it. That is one thing I read, that people were like, this is probably the last time they didn't sound cynical, because apparently people claim that like later records it just does not seem as earnest as this record. Which I could see that if you like spent your entire life in anarchist circles and you were at a point where like we were at this moment where like, you know, we really felt like we were going to make a difference and a change, and then that change didn't happen. I could see being disillusioned with the concept of it, especially if you were that in the trenches like they were. But
lots of people burn out from anarchism.
Yeah, it happens
and
frequently.
Direct action and, you know, all of mutual aid, all that stuff. Like it's people just burn out on it. People just burn out on doing the work.
Yeah.
And then just lose interest in, you know, the politics and the theory of it. And it's like maybe they hold on to a little bit in their heart, but they don't, you know, actively do anything with it. And
yeah. He even tells some story about like Scotland Yard was surrounding his house because of the stuff that they were doing. You know, like getting hassled by cops for a very extended period of your life might actually like get you to change your ways too. Just to be like, I'm so sick of this shit. You know? Maybe if I just stop acting out, maybe I can have a little bit of calmness around me. But yeah, anarchists burn out sometimes. It depends on who it is. But then there's some lifers though. Like that old band in Slacker.
You know, and there's a case to be made that anarchism, a big fault that it has is the all-in kind of purist mentality. It's something I run into a lot and see a lot of, where it's just like you can't ever be pragmatic. You can't ever be incremental. You can't ever, and it's like I understand not wanting to fall into like the liberal incremental politics, like I understand we need to be making big steps, like big steps.
Yeah.
That's very solid theoretically, but there's a lot of just like can't really entertain strange bedfellows, and it's like, I don't know, like a labor movement that, that's going to really like bring anarchism into reality is going to have to include conservative people.
Yeah.
It sucks.
Yeah.
It's annoying. And you're going to have to deal with their other problems later and in other ways. But it's just like most of the working class have bad opinions about everything.
Yeah.
Like you got to deal with that.
And that is part of it too. Like they're just these absolutists, like the ideology is the only way type people. And it's like the whole world doesn't think the way you think though. And yeah, the idea is to try and get them to get on your side.
Yeah.
But you're not going to get everyone.
And you got to get them into the theory, like that's great. Like you need to educate people on theory, but you can't assume that they have a theoretical knowledge or basis for anarchism.
Yeah.
They think anarchism is Sex Pistols.
They think anarchism means chaos.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, it just means we can govern ourselves. We don't need an authority figure. Yet there's a whole subsect of people in this world that crave authoritarianism. Like they just want an authoritarian leader. So you have to live in that world with those people.
Yeah.
Because then your other choice is what? Kill them or yourself? I mean, there has to be a middle ground. It sucks that there has to be a middle ground, but it's one of those things that like it works better in theory than it does, just whole cloth like transformation overnight. It's not going to work. You can't do it that way. Incrementalism is garbage the way the Democrats do it because they don't actually want to change anything.
Yeah.
But incrementalism where you do have a goal in mind, where you're like this by this time, this by this time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's something to be said for that. That lets you get the people on board with what you're trying to do, who are resistant to it. But
yeah, it's very neat. There need to be more goals, more organization to the point of like, and anarchists, like there's definitely like the mentality of like, no, unions aren't necessarily the answer. And it's like, unions are like non-hierarchical, that's
the point behind them.
That's horizontal, self-governance, like it's just organized and like we're agreeing with as many people as possible on like how we govern ourselves.
And it's the closest to like true actual democracy in the sense that like they all vote on whether or not they're going to do this. And it's a majority minority situation. You maybe need a certain percentage, maybe it's not just like, 51% means we get to do it.
Yeah.
No, maybe it's like, 60% to do
quorum,
it.
Yeah. Which, I don't know, not to get into politics. We're pushing our time limit here.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's give it a rating and get out of here. What do you give it?
Like a 2.75.
Dang. Oh, that's right. You're going on a new low scale, right?
I am. That sounds worse than it is.
Yeah. Dylan's new only bad scores.
I'm nerfing my score system a little bit.
Yeah. I could probably stand to that. I'm gonna give it a 4.0. I really dig this record, and it kind of just I listened to it that one time, and it got its claws into me. So yeah, I'm 4.0, 4 flat. Yeah. All right. Well, I think that will do it for us. So thank you all so much for listening. We appreciate each and every one of you. And you can follow us on all forms of social media at Punk Lotto Pod. We have a voicemail line, 202-688-PUNK. We're talking about putting together a voicemail mailbag type audio. So if you have something you want to ask us, and we'll play your voicemail on the show, we will try and do that and put it together something. You can also write in a question or message us on Instagram or something like that. At Punk Lotto Pod on all the socials. punklotopod@gmail.com if you want to send a direct email. So keep that in mind. If we get enough, we will do one. But that'll do it for us. So thank you so much, and we will talk to you next time.
To order Punk, call the number on your screen. Rush delivery is available. Remember, this special offer is not sold in stores.